Welcome back to the channel. This is Radio Storm and you are watching 8th part of What If Naruto Mastered Ancient Shinobi Way. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
As Kakashi dropped his hand and leapt out of the way, Naruto whizzed past him and delivered a flying roundhouse kick to Maida Guy's head. If Maida Guy was surprised or taken aback, he didn't show it as he blocked Naruto's initial strike with his left forearm and retaliated by punching Naruto in the midsection. Naruto anticipated this and used the force of the blow to put some distance between them. It was not in Guy to underestimate an enemy, no matter how formidable they appeared, and it may even be his personal motto to always give his all, no matter how minor the fight. However, this was a first for him. Not only did this person land the initial attack on him, but he also effortlessly blocked his counter and displayed great grace by using Guy's own attack to make room. This fight may turn out to be far more difficult than he had anticipated. "No way," one ninja said. "Is that even possible?" Another asked. "How big has this guy grown? Is that really Naruto?" inquired Ino. This, and many other thoughts, raced through the mind of the ninja who witnessed the first strike. Regardless of Maida Guy's personality, it would be a mistake to believe that his skill was limited to his mouth. In fact, the only thing more painful than his sense of style and more energetic than his personality was his workout routine. He was the type of man who could put even the most brilliant minds in their place. Hinata looked over at her father, trying to gauge his reaction to the current situation. Most people saw him as the picture of serenity, completely undisturbed and at peace, but his mind was racing at the prospect of Hinata becoming that powerful as well. "Isn't he impressive?" Hinata said to him. "Tell me, do you still believe in your victory today? I'd hate for all your guests to witness a humiliating defeat other than mine." He didn't miss a beat in responding to this hidden jab. This was something she had learned as a child from Hiashi himself. She was simply too afraid to do anything to someone who had hurt her so many times. Quite the contrary, so far this has been most unimpressive. "Really, is this all you've accomplished in the last 3 years?" Hiashi asked, his tone unaffected. "And to think you'd believe you're strong because another is remarkably vain of you. You'll always be the same no matter who you're with. Maybe you did the right thing by abandoning your home and comrades all for the sake of him. Maybe we're better as a result, and Naruto-sama over there can bear your weight better than this village can." Tsunade was about to intervene when she heard Hiashi's words, but she was stopped by Tsubaki's hand on her shoulders. It was veiled, but anyone with ears could tell that he simply called her weak. Kiba was about to jump in as well when they all noticed a soft smile spread across her face. The smile was genuine smile of accomplishment. Hiashi was perplexed by this. He was confident that he had explained his position clearly enough for even the Inuzuka fool to understand, so why was she smiling? "This is a great day. It is the first time you have ever spoken to me so much. You usually insult me behind my back." She bowed her head and said, "As my thanks, let me inform you of something. You are right, I am not as strong as Naruto-kun, but if you underestimate me for a second, you might die today and my precious little sister will be without both a mother and a father. I grew up without both." Hiashi was caught off guard, with nothing to say, and defeated at his own game. Her former classmates and Team Guy stood there, some laughing and others with their jaws on the ground. Never in their wildest dreams did they imagine Hinata speaking to someone like that, especially her father, Hiashi. Her tone was not harsh, but meek, and her eyes never wavered as her words piqued Hiashi's interest enough for him to look at her. "Would I interpret that as a threat?" "Heavens no, we are to be allies. It would not do well for the head of the assassination department and the most respected kunoichi of the storm to threaten the life of the head of Konoha's most prestigious clan," Hinata said softly as she smiled. I simply gave you an insight into how I have trained for the past few years, and if something happens, then we only have our own weaknesses to blame. Hiashi had nothing to say because he felt that saying anything more would only encourage her, so he returned to the fight, completely ignoring her presence until the time came for them to fight. This is turning out to be quite the show, Tsunade observed. I hope she doesn't hold a grudge against me, Ino reflected. It's only a matter of time before I put her back in her place, Hiashi thought, but I want to see if her words are genuine, if she's just grown a backbone, or does she actually have the skill to back those words. Back on the field, Naruto and Guy looked at each other intently, carefully examining every movement, wink, muscle twitch, and bead of sweat that fell. They planned for each other's movements as well as movements that they might not make. For Guy, this was a daunting task because everything he knew about Naruto had gone out the window with the first attack, as well as the fact that he wasn't attacking aimlessly and relentlessly, and his forearm was getting slightly numb from blocking the kick. So, in a way, Naruto did get the first hit. Guy would not admit it to himself, but he was shaken and unsure what to do. He stood across from an opponent whose abilities he had no idea about, and to make matters worse, something else was wrong. He could see his opponent, but he didn't feel like he was there. It was as if he took his gaze away from him to blink, he wouldn't be there when his eyes reopened. This was quickly overshadowed by Guy's competitive nature and desire for a good fight. For the most part, Naruto knew exactly what he was up against. He faced Konoha's most physically powerful ninja. Unlike Tsunade, who augmented her strength with chakra, his strength and speed were purely muscular. With the exception of Master Kyoshi and Hinata, Naruto knew this would be his most difficult opponent yet. This was different. He could have used his advanced stealth abilities to take him out without ever touching him, but that would necessitate the use of ninjutsu, and Naruto didn't want to maim him to the point of needing hospitalization, and since it was Guy, that was exactly what he might need to do. He didn't have any real weapons to use, but that didn't mean he couldn't use a stone from the ground. He was trained to turn anything and everything into a potentially lethal weapon. It was a difficult decision, but Naruto would have to follow the Storm's code, fight to kill, and rely on self-control if he did not truly intend to. With that in mind, Naruto charged at Maida Guy once more, but this time Guy was prepared for him, taking a defensive stance. Naruto swiped low at Guy's foot, but Guy jumped over it, ready to retaliate with an axe kick. Naruto, however, was not finished, as he launched himself into the air with his hands. They collided in midair, canceling out both of their momentums. Guy saw Naruto make a throwing motion with his hands as they fell back, so he whipped out a kunai from his pouch and skillfully blocked the projectile, which turned out to be nothing more than a simple stone as it exploded due to its impact with Guy's kunai. Naruto used this distraction to grapple Guy and slam him into the ground just as they were about to collide. However, as Guy was about to collide with the ground, he used his hands to land and kicked Naruto under the chin, knocking him back. "Kage Buyo," he says. Suddenly, Guy appeared behind Naruto, and before Naruto could move, he was wrapped in bandages from head to toe. Guy then grabbed him and they began to spin faster and faster until they hit the ground, raising a great deal of dust and debris and shaking the very earth with the impact. "Omit Renge," Guy exclaimed as the attack ended. When the dust settled, all that remained was a panting Guy and an immobile Naruto, his head stuck in the cratered ground. Tsunade, like the majority of those gathered around him, was concerned because they had all fallen into a deadly silence, a technique known to be dreadfully terrifying. What was Guy thinking by employing such a technique? She looked over at Hinata to see how she was reacting to what had just happened. Hinata, to her surprise, had no expression at all. It was as if she didn't care. She clearly loved Naruto with all her heart, but there was no reason to hide it if he was hurt. Hiashi chose to speak at that precise moment. That was a little underwhelming. "Damn you, Hiashi." "It's fine, Hokage-sama," Hinata said, "the fight is almost over." But Hinata, Naruto could not have avoided that technique. I am deeply sorry. You're assuming Naruto-kun was apprehended in the first place. The Naruto who was stuck in the ground vanished in a puff of smoke, as if on cue. My suspicions were correct, Guy told himself aloud. You are a far more powerful opponent than you let on, Naruto-kun. Guy stiffened as he felt a chill behind him, something breathing down his neck like a hungry predator. At the time, any Junin would have done a kawarimi, but he froze, which no Junin should or would do. Perhaps it was the thought of him dying in gruesome ways, such as being torn apart by rabid animals and not having even a stick to ward them off. It was bloodlust, pure and focused on him, that was more powerful than killing intent. It froze him in place, exposing his senses to Naruto's weak genjutsu. He got behind me so easily that I didn't even notice him. Why can't my body move? You don't mean, Kanshisha-sama? Guy was able to break the genjutsu and perform an aerial spin kick at this point. Daizenpu Konoha. Naruto noticed this and, unlike most people, moved in closer to deliver a punch on Guy's inner thigh on a pressure point, causing the limb to go numb, followed by a vicious left-handed back fist to Guy's midsection in quick succession. Guy was catapulted away from Naruto by the back fist, and before he could right himself, Naruto was on him again in a flash, kicking him in the solar plexus, forcefully driving the air from Guy's lungs and slamming into a tree. As Guy raised his eye, he was pounded with a barrage of strikes to his chest and arms, numbing him for the shin that tore him through the tree and slamming him against another as he coughed up blood. The onlookers couldn't believe what they were witnessing. This was an entirely one-sided battle. The only reason the fight was not stopped was because he could take it and would not stop until he passed out. Konoha's green beast's incredible stamina and resilience were proving to be his undoing. He was reduced to the status of a punching bag. How could anyone stand up to such a beating? Was this the real Naruto? Guy's hands were useless. Whatever Naruto did to him made them unresponsive. He could barely stand and had severe breathing problems. Shall you forfeit, Guy-san? Naruto asked, because if you don't, I'll put you down with my next move. Guy was able to stand and strike his nice guy pose despite his excruciating pain. You have been a worthy adversary, Naruto-kun, Guy said, but this fight is far from over, and I have yet to demonstrate my eternal flames of youth. Your spirit is admirable as always, Guy-san, and for that, I shall show you something special, Naruto said, taking a relaxed stance. Know that I am not looking forward to what I am about to do. Guy looked at the stance and was completely perplexed as to what he was about to do, but he did not wait for him to carry out his plan. Guy charged at him, attempting to kick Naruto's head off with what he had left. If the look on Naruto's face was any indication, he was unprepared for this assault. However, with millimeters to go, the look of shock turned into a grin as Maeda Guy's foot sailed through Naruto's head before he vanished entirely. Bunshin? Guy wondered as he dodged a punch to the temple, only to see Naruto vanish into thin air and then feel pain in his right kidney. He quickly turned around to retaliate, but he only succeeded in dissipating another copy. Wait, what kind of jutsu is this? Seibashi Nakama, Naruto said from behind him, is a taijutsu technique that uses incredible speed to create afterimages of the user. Now prepare yourself, this fight has lasted long enough. Naruto took a step forward and vanished in front of Maeda Guy's eyes, only to reappear and drive a knee into his gut. Naruto then flipped over and delivered an axe kick to the back of Guy's neck, knocking him out cold. Or so he thought, because as he walked away, he felt Guy's chakra expand. Guy was on the verge of opening the gates. Naruto came to a halt inside. This could end badly. Tsunade-sama, you should stop this fight before Naruto kills him, Hinata advised. Tsunade nodded to Kakashi, signaling the end of the fight. When Kakashi saw this, he ran to Guy's side and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's over, my friend," Kakashi said, announcing the winner as Uzumaki Naruto of Arashigakure no Sato. Naruto simply walked back to his seat, his body only glistening with sweat as the assembled ninja looked on, some still unable to comprehend the outcome. It was so quiet that when Guy's body hit the ground, it echoed, and the only sound anyone heard was the wind blowing through the small forest next to the clearing and small waves lapping at the pond's banks. "How did you manage to defeat Maida Guy and avoid the Omet Renge?" He seemed to have complete command of the battle from the start. Hiashi, with his incalculable features, was not expecting such a result. Naruto simply smiled at him and mouthed something to him. Hiashi paid no attention as Tsunade dashed out onto the field to check on Guy. "I made a point of not doing anything permanent. He should be fine after a few days' rest." Tsunade examined him and discovered that the only serious problem was a few broken ribs. "You're correct," Tsunade said before ordering 2 Chunin to take him to the hospital. "Shall we proceed now?" she inquired. "Indeed." Hinata rose to meet Naruto and planted a passionate kiss on his lips as they returned to their seats. "Naruto-kun, well done," she said. "It's now my turn." "Hiashi-san," Naruto said. "Are you prepared?" The rest of the Rookie 9 and Team Guy gaped at this. "Are you sure, Hinata?" Ino inquired. Hinata simply gave her a hard stare that silenced all of her questions. Hiashi didn't follow her to the center of the field. Hinata became aware of this and turned to face him. "Did you forget you have to prove yourself first?" "I was hoping to get straight to you," she explained, "so who shall you have me face?" "Of course, the heiress of the Hyuga clan." Hinata sighed, knowing that something like this would occur. "I'm not surprised," she said as Hanabi followed her to the center of the field. Hanabi's expression was blank as she stared at her sister. "I never wanted to fight you, sister," Hinata explained. "Please forfeit before anything bad happens." "I'm sorry, Nei-san, but this is what I have to do." "You gave me no choice," Hanabi said as she slid into the Juken stance and activated her Byakugan. "We always have a choice, even if it's a difficult one, so I'm giving you one last chance," she said, but Hanabi simply ignored her and said, "Very well, if this is what you wish." Hinata slid into her own stance, the stance that gave rise to the Jiyuken as we know it. She turned to the side, her hips turned towards Hanabi, her left hand away from her body, palms facing Hanabi, and the other resting just below her ribs, as if holding a baby. The stance appeared to be very loose and soft, in contrast to the rigid coiled spring pose that was the Juken stance. "It appears that you have forgotten what you have learned in only a few years, sister," Hanabi mocked, but received no response. The time for talking had passed. With that, Kakashi turned to face the 2 Kunoichi and dropped his hands, signaling the start of the match. "Hajime!" he exclaimed before leaping out of the way. Hanabi charged at her sister, who hadn't moved from her spot, with a burst of speed, aiming a strike at Hinata's lung. However, the fight was over as soon as it began, with Hanabi coughing up blood and collapsing unconscious to the ground. This day would always remind Hanabi of what it was like to fight outside her league. Meanwhile, before the borders between New Uzumaki and Earth were established, a large number of shinobi entered the country with blood on their tongues. They were fortunate that New Uzumaki and Earth Country shared a border, and that Iwa was so close to that border. They did, however, come across a man on their journey. He sat at the base of a tree, the branches of which dangled lazily over the river that served as the natural border between New Uzu and Tsuchi. As his troops approached, the leader ninja came to a halt. He appeared to be a normal man in his late 30s, except that next to him, leaning against the tree, was an 8-foot-long sword known as a nodashi. He didn't seem to notice their presence at first, only turning his head in the direction of sounds indicating he was blind. The lead ninja deduced from these facts that this man was Hagen Riku, the blind Nodashi. He considered himself fortunate that the man was blind and used hand gestures to instruct one of his shinobi to climb the tree quietly and catch him off guard. He was in for a rude awakening, however. Permit me to deliver this message before you do something stupid like sending that boy up this tree for whatever reason. The lead ninja wasn't entirely surprised, so he decided to make light of the situation. After all, this man was a former member of the Seven Swords of the Mist. And what might that be? She inquired, but I warn you, any false movements will result in your death. Fair enough, he stood up, making all the ninja around him tense with anticipation. Kanshisha-sama has given you a choice. Go back home and we will hold no grudge. If you do not, then you must all pay the price of admission. Oh yeah, how much is this admission? It's your lives. Before ordering his men to kill the blind man, the leader ninja only laughed. Some of the ninja attempted to flee but were killed on the spot for deserting. Perhaps they were the wise ones, having heard stories from the survivors of the failed mission at the waterfall. So be it, it is only fair that I give you my full name, Hagen Riku of the Jukyu no Arashi. He was impaled in the head with a kunai as he said this, only for him and the sword to turn to water and splash on the ground. Mizu Bunshin, the lead ninja said, he's still close by, so stick together and proceed with caution. The ninja all stood in one group and proceeded to cross the river, and as they did, the rain began to fall. They didn't pay attention to this because it had been cloudy for a while, but they became agitated as the mist began to roll in, causing them to slow their progress to a crawl as they could see no more than a foot in front of their faces. But what finally made them stop and put up their guard was the well-known sound of blade. Welcome to Uzumake no Kuni, a voice from the mist said. You must pay the fee because you entered despite my warnings and the mercy of our Kanshisha. Go to hell, you bastard, a ninja yelled before attempting to release a wind jutsu to blow away the mist, but nothing happened except for his head being severed with a shocked expression on it. Would anyone else like to give it a shot? This was followed by screams from everyone in the group. Spread out and proceed to the village, you three, stay here. With that, the mini ninja army dispersed in all directions and proceeded to the village, leaving the lead ninja and 3 other Junin behind. Wise decision. The mist parted to reveal Riku with 1 foot over a pile of stabbed corpses and his Nodashi slung over his shoulder dripping with blood. Disperse the troops to make them less vulnerable to ambush and make it difficult to halt their advance and leave 4 Junins to be the rear guard. How did he kill so many people in such a short period of time? Opined one of the journalists. The mist then rolled back in, turning their world grayish-white because they couldn't see anything in front of them, and they weren't trained in the art of the silent kill, but they were Junin and could avoid attack due to wind shifts. But what if the rear guard went missing? The 4 Junin took a defensive posture with their backs all facing inwards, and one of them reacted quickly, blocking a sword strike only moments before the one behind him did the same. The lead looked down and saw something smoldering at his feet. Shit. He yelled, alerting the other 3 to the situation, 3 of whom were able to leap away in time, but one was not so fortunate, and now things were looking really bad. They were all separated, and they could only see a few feet ahead of them. The lead ninja heard a scream and the sound of metal piercing flesh. He was a new Junin, not particularly experienced, but if experience was required, then against this foe, they were already dead. This was punctuated by the scream of his last comrade. He was now alone. He gripped his kunai tighter as he stepped back slowly until he felt the tip of something pointy on his back and side. You can kill me if you want, but nearly 300 ninja are on their way to annihilate your village as we speak. The man grinned maniacally. In the end, we shall win, and your pitiful existence shall be erased, and Iwa's pride will be restored. How foolish, Riku said as he pierced the ninja's body, allowing him to hear his words, Your force is being whittled down as they travel, and because they are dispersed, they will all be assassinated far easier. Just before closing his eyes, the Iwa Junin had a solemn expression on his face because the last thing he heard was an explosion in the distance, and the last thing he saw since the mist was lifted was the bodies of the men and women he led into battle for the sake of pride. What happened just now? Tsunade inquired. She was defeated so easily, Ino remarked, and she barely moved. What kind of satire is this? Hiashi fumed calmly. Do you both intend to insult me and my clan by doing this? No, there is no mockery, just something that the Hyuga had forgotten ages ago, Naruto said as he watched Hinata treat her sister before handing her over to a waiting Chunin. Judging by Neji's look, I assume he shall be your next test? Hiashi huffed and got out of his seat. Hiashi-sama? Neji inquired. I will take this insult personally. As you see fit. Hinata stood in the field, her long hair blowing in the wind, adding to her serene beauty. I see you've decided to face me yourself, father, Hinata said, turning to face him. Did you borrow Neji ni spine? Sans. Enough of this nonsense. Rage was visible in his eyes, heightened by the Byakugan. You have insulted me for the last time, prepare for your judgment. Hiashi did not know how to deal with this. The Hinata he knew would have quickly recoiled and started twiddling her fingers. To make matters worse, his Byakugan, that all-seeing dojutsu, was not able to see past this. This he was certainly not expecting, and what's worse, she seemed to know it, and not just know it, but was able to scream it. Have you noticed now, Hiashi? What exactly can those eyes of yours see? She said as she approached him almost to within an arm's length. Hiashi scoffed at those words as Kakashi prepared to begin the match. He had finished talking and would now use action to put this arrogant child in her place. Hyuga Hiashi versus Hyuga Hinata, Kakashi said before leaping out of the way. Hinata took the opposite stance as Hiashi. If you're ready, come, she said, adding, school is in session. Back with Naruto and the others, Ino and the rest of the Rookie 9 and Team Guy watched with bated breath. Ino couldn't bear it and turned away, but this enraged Naruto. Do not avert your gaze, any of you, he said emphatically, but watch closely the outcome of hard work, perseverance, sacrifice, and faith, and carve it deep within your memory that greatness is not a matter of lineage or natural talent. Ino returned his gaze to the fighters, who were still staring each other down. Naruto's words echoed across the field, and every shinobi felt a pang of shame as he said them. They were the same ones who looked down on him and Hinata, thinking they lacked the talent to become anything more than acceptable ninja. They couldn't have been more wrong, and now they were the ones who would rather surrender than fight either of them. Tsunade looked over at him, at the young man sitting next to her with an office equal to hers, a legend in the making, and the pride on her face was unmistakable. So, this is Iwa, such a lovely place, the man said as he stood on a tree overlooking the village. He had traveled all night at top speed to get here, so he leapt off the tree and raced towards the open gate, only slowing down once and speeding up again to ensure that he timed his entrance perfectly. He was a master of stealth, as silent as a falling feather and as fast as a hawk catching its prey. He kept his high speed as he approached the village, and as soon as both guards turned to face different directions, he swooped in with no one the wiser, maintaining this speed until he reached a building and hugged the shadowy areas of it. The streets in Iwa are quite congested, he observed. But this was not a challenge for him. He spotted and identified every ninja in the street, which was mostly civilian and genin. He slunk out of the shadows, ducking and weaving between people. Not even in broad daylight was he spotted. He took advantage of the natural blind spots that existed in all humans, and with his stealth abilities, even a Junin would miss him. Your focus is lacking, Mira. Mira turned, her weapons drawn, and paused as she realized who had abducted her. Kanshisha-sama, she sighed, nervously putting her weapons away. Please excuse my rudeness, I did not expect you so suddenly. It's unavoidable, but what information do you have for me? Of course not. Many of the ninja in this village are currently on their way to our village, as you may have noticed, and the Tsuchikage is currently meeting with village elders. I can only confirm 2 people are with him for how long or how many people are with him. Well done, Naruto said, asking if the meeting was held in his office. No, she said with a sly grin, he is an old shinobi so he does not do anything so openly or obvious, but I happen to know that he is not even in the tower and won't be back for some time due to a few contacts of mine. How can you be sure? Don't worry, Kanshisha-sama. Anyone who gets a taste of me will do anything I say. Kitsamara Mira was not hailed as the best of her clan for nothing. She was like a beautiful poison that a person couldn't get enough of, the kind of person who would gladly cut out your heart with a dull blade and offer it as a gift to her. Yes, indeed, Naruto said as he turned to leave, now I need you to meet up with Riku, you two will attack the enemy from the rear and never give them a moment's rest, dog them until the very end. I am counting on your talents for this, you will also meet up with another clone. I will be delighted, Kanshisha-sama. With that, he was gone, dodging in and around people until he found it. A simple cloaking jutsu was all it took to evade the ninja in the building and make it to his office. He waited until someone came out and as the door was opened, he dashed in to see that the office was empty, just as she said. He pulled out a bottle of ink and a brush and began preparing for the return of the Tsuchikage. Hinata was the first to move, her movements were graceful, smooth, and beautiful, but slow, and Hiashi took advantage of this by parrying the right-handed strike with his left hand past his left shoulder and delivering a swift Jiyuken strike to her stomach. Does this sum up your... As Hiashi's left hand fell useless to his side, Hinata's eyes widened and a grin spread across his face. He saw danger and the world flashed red with it, so he did the only thing he could do in a situation like this, he ran. Kaiten. Hinata noticed this and leapt away, avoiding the Hyuga's ultimate defense. As he came to a halt, he looked at her with his one useless arm. What did you do? What happened just now? Didn't he get her? Kiba inquired. Naruto was now the center of attention. The Hyuga's Jiyuken is flawed and incomplete. It doesn't even have a way to defend itself against it, Naruto mused, and it's so powerful and feared because no one else knows how to defend against it either. So you're saying Hinata discovered a way to counteract the Jiyuken? Homura inquired. No, the counselor said calmly, she has discovered the origin of Jiyuken, the palm open. What nonsense do you spew? Jiyuken is the Hyuga clan's secret taijutsu art, Hiashi raged. Your eyes are still closed, and even though you're using your Jiyuken, you're still blind to what's right in front of you, Hinata sighed, shifting her stance to one foot in front of the other. She raised her hands above her head as if doing a block, then brought them down slowly at her sides, then to the front in an open-palmed guard, changing the postures of her hands as if going through a smooth series of blocks, and when she was finished, if you were at a high enough level and looked carefully, you would see ghostly after images of various hand positions and a burning aura around her. Without a pause, she seemed to vanish from view and reappear next to Hiashi, patting him lightly on the leg, causing him to buckle unexpectedly. He retaliated quickly like the Jiken master that he was, but his hand was shunted to a side, exposing his chest to the ex-Hyuga princess. Breathing became difficult, as if he had a bag over his head. The beating was not over yet, as his eyes saw. What happened to me? Before passing out, the last thing he felt was pride. Hiashi awoke with a grunt and a headache. He looked around and noticed the shoji door slide open. When the person saw Hiashi try to sit up, he paused in mild panic. My lord, please remain still, the man said as he rushed over, you've only just awoken. Hanabi had just entered the room to see what was going on. I'm glad to see you're awake, father, she said. How are you feeling? Hiashi looked around the room impassively as he motioned for the man to assist him in sitting up. There's nothing to worry about, Hanabi. I'm not feeling any negative effects. Thank goodness, a soft voice said through the door. When Hiashi looked over, he recognized Hinata. Leave us, Hiashi demanded. Hinata sighed, but Hiashi stopped her as she was about to walk away. No, I mean for you to stay, Hinata, he said, looking at Hanabi and the man who helped him up as if they had picked up on the hint. Are you certain, father? Hanabi inquired. You are not in a position to exert yourself. Hiashi fixed her with a cold stare. As you see fit. As Hanabi and the man exited the room, she spoke encouragingly to her sister. Hanabi didn't dislike her sister. It was just that she never looked up to her, and as the preferred child with more Hyuga arrogance than Hinata, Hiashi quickly rubbed off on her. But Hinata was now someone she could and would proudly call her big sister, someone she aspired to be. Hinata entered the room and knelt next to her father after closing the shoji door. She didn't slouch, she didn't appear nervous, and she didn't appear to be bragging about her previous victory. Hiashi, if he were completely honest with himself, would admit that seeing her was unusually intimidating. He forced himself to sit up after looking at her features. You must not get up, Hinata said, putting her hands on his chest to keep him down. No, he replied, please help me up, this is something I have to do. Hinata thought it was strange to hear him speak like that, so she ignored her better judgment and helped him up. When Hiashi was sitting comfortably, he did something that would make many people question their sanity if they had witnessed it. He laughed. Not the superior aloft smile he reserved for his opponents, but a genuine, proud fatherly smile. Hinata was astounded by what she was witnessing. She was less convinced when he bowed to her and placed his head on the floor. What are you doing, Hiashi? She asked, looking around frantically to make sure no one was eavesdropping. Please get up. This is not typical of you. No, it isn't, but you deserve better, he said, his forehead still resting on the floor. Please forgive this foolish man for his past actions against you. You were right. I was so blinded by my losses and position that I didn't see what was directly in front of me. Hinata sat there, trying to process what had just happened. If you asked her what she would have done in such a situation, she would have no idea and would probably dismiss it as one of those things that would remain in some kind of fantasy. But here she was, with Hyuga Hiashi kneeling in total submission and pleading for her forgiveness. If this was a joke, it wasn't a particularly amusing one. Is this all it took? She asked finally. What? Hiashi asked, his eyes wide with confusion. Is this how you earned your respect? I don't get it. It took me leaving with Naruto-kun, returning, and defeating you in combat for you to finally respect my skill after all those years growing up and trying so hard. Hiashi raised his head. Isn't what you've done worthy of respect and acknowledgement of my failures? Do you know why I first fell in love with Naruto-kun? She inquired. We come from different worlds, our fighting styles, personality, family, and even ways of dealing with things were completely opposite, but there was one thing that we both had in common, the same thing that led me to him that evening in the forest. Neither of us knows the feeling of a parent's love. Naruto-kun may be less fortunate than me because I once had a mother, but he never did, so he made do, whereas I had a father. Hinata slowly stood up and walked to the door, but she came to a halt when her hand touched the handle. Despite you, I never held any hatred or grudge against you or my sister, so yes, I forgive you, but I also never cared about your respect, she said as she opened the door. As she closed the door, Hinata was surprised to see Hanabi standing there. She smiled at her little sister before kissing her on the cheek and walking past Fuma Danjo at the end of the corridor. How did it go? He inquired. Unexpected, she concluded, and Danjo asked no further questions. "Hinata!" exclaimed Hiashi desperately before collapsing in a coughing fit. "She's gone, father," Hanabi said, trying hard not to cry, "and I don't know when we'll see her again." "We'll see her again," Hiashi promised. Seeing Hanabi's face made him realize something. He had never taken the time to truly be with his daughters, perhaps not in Hanabi's case because she was the one worth spending more time with training, but that couldn't be all. He couldn't recall spending any quality time with Hinata. After all, she is getting married and would most likely want her sister to be there. Hanabi's face lit up before she realized who she was in the presence of, but she couldn't take her smile off her face. Tsuchikage walked into his office, only to come to a halt when he saw the walls and floor covered in scrawls and symbols, and then at his chair, which faced the wall. "Who the hell are you and how did you get in here?" he demanded as his bodyguard charged the chair from behind, ready to deliver a diving punch. However, as he got closer, all he could see was air and a sharp pain in his neck, followed by darkness. As this happened, the ninja outside heard the commotion and ran, but they couldn't do anything because the door to Tsuchikage's office had been slammed shut and they couldn't open it. "I'm not going to ask you again," Tsuchikage, now enraged, warned. "You waged war against my village, but you have no idea what I look like?" Naruto asked, turning to face him. Then everything became clear to the elderly Kage. "So you must be this Kanshisha I've heard so much about," he said as he grinned, walked over to his seat, clearly ignoring the blonde in his office. "I expected you to be more significant." "And I expected you to be taller," Naruto retorted, "but we can't always be right." In his seat, Tsuchikage growled. "You are quite a skilled young man to be able to plant a spy in my village and infiltrate it yourself," the Tsuchikage said as he leaned back in his chair, his fingers interlocked. "You're skilled, but quite foolish, so I'll give you 5 minutes to beg mercy before I kill you. Right now, a large number of your ninja are heading towards my village. I am not pleased, and frankly, I am rather upset about it." The Tsuchikage had a look of amusement on his face before covering it with one of disgust. "You break into my village and waste my time only for this?" The old man began to rise from his seat but was abruptly stopped by the arms of his chair transforming into real arms and pulling him back on the chair and wrapping the other arm around his neck. The next thing he saw was an enraged Naruto in his face, holding a blood-splattered blade in his hands. "I'm not finished yet, old man." "Kai!" yelled the Tsuchikage, hoping it was just a genjutsu. He was correct. As he looked around, the chair had returned to normal, only to find himself back at the door, watching his unconscious bodyguard and Naruto sitting on his desk. "Do you like it? What is the significance of this?" "It's genjutsu, and a man of your status should be aware of that." "Why, you arrogant whelp!" The Tsuchikage raged. How could he have been caught off guard so easily? He would not underestimate him this time and would dispatch him without delay. "I know what you're thinking," Naruto said. "All I need is a second, brat," the Tsuchikage thought as Naruto spoke. "You think you should get rid of me as soon as possible so I don't give you any more surprises, right?" He raged but was unable to refute. Naruto went on, turning around to walk around the cage. "That would be..." Naruto abruptly came to a halt as a sharp pain registered in his back, and the darkness quickly claimed him. "Unwise?" mocked the short old man as he twisted the kunai and dropped Naruto's lifeless body on the floor before walking to the door. "Exactly." The Tsuchikage froze, then spun around to see Naruto standing up, the kunai still in his back. "Who the hell are you?" Kage was perplexed. "This is getting old, and I have to leave soon, so shut up and stop interrupting." As Naruto said this, 2 chairs appeared, one of which buckled Tsuchikage's knees, causing him to fall on it, and the other of which Naruto sat on without difficulty. As I previously stated, attacking me would be foolish because everything in here is an illusion created and controlled by me thanks to those seals you saw when you came in. There is no escape except through me, and anything I command in this area is law. This is the Kinjutsu Fuin, Kami no Bunya. I see, but I doubt you've come to brag. Correct. I am quite upset that you saw fit to attack my lands again. The first time, I spared some of your ninja, despite the fact that I was perfectly within my rights to kill them all, Naruto said. However, this time you knew your true target and our location and attacked blatantly for a reason I can only assume is either revenge or pride, which doesn't matter. What exactly is your point? This is your final warning, Naruto stated flatly. The ninja you sent to my village will all be slaughtered without mercy or exception. Anyone who escapes will be hunted down, and if they manage to escape, their names will be entered into our bingo book as kill on sight. The Tsuchikage gave him a blank stare before bursting out laughing. Did I say anything amusing? Yes, you said your puny village could defeat the ninja I sent, he said, then paused with a defiant expression. How stupid can you get? Not half as stupid as you. Tell me, do you know how ninja truly fight, how they gain an advantage over their adversaries and defeat foes far more powerful than them? To whom do you think you're speaking, boy? Then you should know what happens when a large force enters an enemy's territory that has been underestimated and prepared. If his raised eyebrow was any indication, that got his attention. What exactly do you want? You rejected what I wanted before, and so did your ninja. Now your ninja will pay for your actions. I am simply here to tell you that if something like this happens again, I will return and destroy everything in this village, Naruto said as he rose in a matter-of-fact tone. Do you dare to threaten me? That was no threat, Tsuchikage. Do you believe this is the limit of my power? Naruto asked before shaking Tsuchikage's hand. Take my hand, and everything will be forgiven and forgotten. I don't hold a grudge. What gives you the impression that I don't? Holding grudges and seeking vengeance only adds to one's own suffering. Don't you want to sit back and worry about one less likely threat? He said, holding out his hand. I understand how the world works, but isn't it better to have known neutral parties than potential enemies? Take my hand, Tsuchikage, and let us put this behind us. How about my guys? I promised you what would happen if you attacked, and I never break a promise, that is my nindo. The Tsuchikage sighed. He'd been outmatched and outclassed, and there was only one way out, the ever-present hand in front of him. He could take it and forget about the agreement, or he could ignore it and have another potential enemy to deal with. The choice was clear and obvious, and only a fool would go against it. His ninja were already dead. He'd already taken the leap down this rabbit hole with both eyes open, and now he'd been caught by something far more fierce than a rabbit, and there was no turning back. A brilliant strategy. Surround your enemies on 3 sides, offer them one way out, and kill them quietly as they flee. Whatever I've done, there must be a way. Fine, he said as he took the offered hand, but Naruto smiled and tightly gripped the man's hands, preventing him from fleeing. What are you up to? As I told you, I know how this world works, Tsuchikage. I have no doubt that you will associate with those who consider themselves my enemy and plot against my village, and this way, I can prevent that. As he said this, a red beetle that looked like a cartoon walked across his hand and burned itself onto his lower neck, leaving only a black oval shape. What exactly is this? A blood seal that allows me to communicate with you no matter where you are, as well as find and summon you whenever I want. Naruto then placed his hands in the ram seal, and everything around them looked like glass falling from a broken window. May it be a peaceful one until we meet again, Tsuchikage. Indeed. Oh, and before I go, be careful assuming who I am. You might be correct. He vanished in a puff of smoke with that. A shadow clone? He exclaimed, then something struck him, maybe that thing he put on me is. But when he checked his lower neck, the oval was still there. He was now branded, and there was nothing he could do but keep his words and await the bodies of his men. When they finally broke down the door, the ninja asked, Tsuchikage-sama, what happened, are you okay? No, he stated solemnly, I'm not. Back in Konoha, Naruto received the information from one of his shadow clones, one of two he created, the other of which was in the storm preparing for battle. Did he agree? Tsubaki inquired. See for yourself, he said, holding up the word for earth in his palm. I see. The seal he used was one of the seals described on one of Master Kyoshi's scrolls. With the seal, Naruto could communicate with the Tsuchikage or anyone else branded with it whenever he wanted, summon them whenever he wanted, and see through their eyes whenever he wanted. If it falls into the wrong hands, this is a truly terrifying jutsu. However, there was one limitation: only 7 people could be contracted at one time. The Bakudo Fuin, Katateochi Setsuzoku was the name for this. Now it's time to talk to Tsunade, Naruto said, turning to face a corner of the room. Could you please deliver a message to Tsunade? Nothing happened, and Naruto looked silly until he looked at Tsubaki and nodded in the general direction of where he was talking. Tsubaki did not hesitate and discovered the hidden anbu that had been placed to keep an eye on them. Now that I have your full attention, Naruto stated. I know you're an anbu who only supports Tsunade, so I'd like you to deliver this message to her. He didn't say anything. Tell Tsunade that I'd like to speak with her alone so that we can discuss the true terms of our alliance. She can bring any 2 ninja to act as her guards, but the area must be secure, and the meeting must happen tonight. Why should I deliver such a message? Inquired the anbu. Because if you don't, I'll have to deliver this message in some other way, and I doubt any of you could stop me if I wanted to take a stroll through this village. Even though he said it amusingly, Naruto's expression gave no room for defiance, and the anbu couldn't help but obey. Yes, I understand. I will deliver it right away. With that, he exited the room, and Hinata entered. Welcome back, Hinata-chan. How was your father's visit? He seemed repentant but clueless, she said as she sat next to him and rested her head on his shoulder, prompting him to wrap his arms around her. He actually begged forgiveness. What exactly did you do? You're aware of what I did, Naruto-kun. You forgave him, my Sukihana, he said as he kissed her soft lips. Your gentle heart truly is your greatest gift, my Sukihana, it is what I fell in love with. He, Naruto-kun, be careful, I might start blushing again. It's already too late, he said as he clutched her close, and by the way, we have a meeting tonight. To go over the actual terms of the agreement? Yes, and I'd like your eyes to make sure we're safe. You can have everything I have, Naruto. I am yours and you are mine. Later in the day, in the new whirlpool. You took long enough to get here, the blind man said, and if you had taken any longer, I might have had to go on by myself. Shut up, Riku. We're not all former 7 swords like you, she said, taking a breather. She had taken extra precautions sneaking out of Iwa so that her face would not be known if she had to infiltrate it again. After that, she basically ran all the way to meet up with Riku in a dead sprint. Do you need a moment to catch your breath? He inquired. No, I'm fine, let's go, she said. Before she became a Jiryu no Arashi, such physical exertion would have been too much for her, but Naruto literally trained them into the ground, day in and day out, until they met his standards. Riku spoke as they leapt through the trees on their way to the enemy. Remember when you said that men are all animals and that any group of men can be easily turned against each other and riled up by your charms? Do you want me to spend some personal time with them? Don't be ridiculous, he laughed. Night is falling, and they're a large group. So they'd need to stop and rest soon, she explained, understanding what he meant. Precisely, he explained, we can simply disturb them and run interference so that they don't get a wink of sleep and maybe trim their numbers a little bit. They are already wary of avoiding the traps set by the assassination department, and they should contact them tomorrow and will not be able to deter from their assassination techniques. I like this idea, and it inspires me to devise my own plan. She had that predatory female look in her eyes when she said this, signaling to everyone who knew her that she was up to something sinisterly erotic or just plain dirty on a sadistic level. That look in your eyes bothers me, he said. And they're going to dislike it even more. Following Riku's incursion, the 300 Iwa ninja split up and went in different directions to avoid the onslaught of the blind, no-dashi-wielding ninja. They intended to split up and meet near the village to stop anyone attempting to flee. This plan, however, went horribly wrong as they crossed the river. It began with small groups that seemed to vanish into thin air, followed by stealthy hit-and-run attacks that claimed the lives of many ninja. Until it was too late, the assailant was never seen or heard. Then there were the arrows, which sometimes rained and sometimes came as a deadly barrage that was unforgiving enough to hit each target directly while also piercing those who were cowardly enough to hide behind a comrade. When the arrows rained, they were normal length, sometimes even shorter, and seemed to be set off just as a large number of shinobi came across certain paths, but when the shower ended, those who were lucky enough to survive were quickly put to rest by long 3-foot arrows, sometimes longer depending on the thickness of the tree they hid behind. They saw golden arrows and, if they were lucky, a glimpse of their executioner, a menacing-looking man with spider-like features wielding a 6-foot-long war bow made of some kind of golden material. That was until the majority of the forces regrouped and the attacks appeared to have ceased for a time. Maybe with this large a crowd, whoever was out there wouldn't dare to get too close. Whatever the reason, it was getting late, and the stars were starting to appear. Is this all that was left? Inquired the Junin who took command. Yes, if anyone is left out there alone, they won't make it through the night, a Chunin said. So, how much do we have in total? Inquired the journalist. Roughly, about 200, a journalist replied. What? He exclaimed in horror, you mean to tell me that 1/3 of our numbers have been reduced on the first day? At the very least, we'll be able to launch our assault tomorrow at sundown. All right, he said, regaining his composure. I will not be outdone by these small fry. He then began issuing orders. I want a watch that works around the clock and rotates every 3 hours. This was carried out by the Chunin. I'd like a message sent back to Iwa requesting reinforcement and warning them of the dangers. Will we have to wait for reinforcements? No, 200 ninja is more than enough to launch the assault. Then I'll do it right away, said another Chunin as he left to deliver the message via carrier bird. Next, I want everyone to get as much rest as they can and eat as much as they can, he said. We'll face the storm tomorrow. No one cared later that night about the simple little spiders that crawled away from them and up a tree not far from where they set up camp. They all left a barely visible thread of silk in their wake, effectively providing a map to each target. The target was a simple Junin, one who was trusted and strong enough to keep an eye on the other Chunin on guard duty. The locations and movements of every ninja on patrol were also targets. They were each skillfully, quietly, and simultaneously killed with the assistance of the assassination unit. Mira stalked her prey, the Junin who checked in on the patrols, at the same time. "You are a fool to think you can face me and hope to live," the Junin said as he turned around with a kunai poised to kill. However, when he turned around, no one was there. "I could have, URK." He tried to say, but couldn't because a hand was over his mouth and a kunai was at the base of his skull. "You may be a shadow clone of Uzumaki-sama, but there isn't much of a difference," Mira pouted. "You even managed to ruin my good time. Your plan was sound, but going into their encampment to deploy your jutsu was too risky." She kept scowling. "Alright, let's just get this over with." "Hi," she said, and began weaving hand seals. "Mabarashi Seisho no Jutsu, Hajutsu." Her mouth released a dense yellow mist the size of a large fireball in the direction of the enemy camp. She then moved behind Naruto's shadow clone, who was just finishing up a jutsu of his own. Kazunami no Jutsu, Futon. A terrifying gust of wind ripped through the encampment, tearing up tents and blowing away and scattering many. The wind only lasted a few seconds, but it had the desired effect as Mira and the Storm Ninja stared in awe at the jutsu's shared destructive power. "How can a fraction of his power be this powerful?" "Now we have to wait," Naruto said. "Go take your position, and don't look away for a second, or you'll be dead." "Hi." As she walked away, Naruto extended his arm, and an owl landed on it. "How did you like your meal?" "You should try stool pigeon sometime," the summon said. "No, I'm afraid Messenger Hawk is too wealthy for my blood." "Very well," they said, "but I must say, they taste a lot like chicken." "There's a lot of chaos going on down there. Should I go take a closer look?" "It would be greatly appreciated," she said as she took off to investigate the chaos that was about to erupt. Mira's jutsu causes anyone in contact with it to produce an excessive amount of adrenaline, and Naruto's jutsu served as both a trigger and a delivery mechanism. As a result, 200 highly trained ninja were doped up on adrenaline without realizing it, and had just survived an attack that left most of them unable to imagine a ninja capable of such a thing. But that wasn't the issue. With so many ninja in one place and so much adrenaline coursing through their veins, it would only be a matter of hours before they all snapped. Some would flee in fear of the unknown, while others would know better but be so tightly wound that turning on their comrade would not be a second thought. And every now and then, a small nudge propelled them down the path of self-destruction. Allowing an overwhelming enemy to destroy itself is the simplest way to defeat them. Their body would eventually stop producing adrenaline, but not for hours unless it was detected, which was highly unlikely. But the night was young, and there were still 10 hours until sunrise, and if their bodies stopped producing energy, they would be too physically and mentally exhausted to fight or focus properly, and using something like a soldier pill would only have a short effect, resulting in death. Meanwhile, back in Konoha, Naruto and Tsunade met behind closed doors for a private discussion, one that would shake Konoha to its core if what they were discussing became public. "Thank you for agreeing, Tsunade no Ba-chan. It was no problem at all, but I'm curious about what you want to discuss. We came here knowing that this proposed alliance would benefit Konoha far more than it would benefit us, and your counselors are well aware of this. Are you saying you don't want us to form an alliance?" "I did not say that, which is why I invited you here to discuss the true terms of our agreement." "What exactly do you mean by our demands?" Tsunade said, becoming tense, causing the Anbu next to Kakashi to tense. "Please accept my apologies. What we discussed yesterday in your counselors and Hiashi's presence was mostly a sham to smoke out our mutual weed and vermin problem. We still want those things, but there are some other things that could not be discussed in their presence." "And what exactly is that, Naruto-kun?" "Itachi Uchiha Tsunade raised an eyebrow in response. What about him? She asked, laughing as a crazy thought popped into her head. Do you want us to remove him from our bingo book? Naruto, on the other hand, was about to give her the shock of her life. Yes, but not now, in about 3 months, and I also want a certain document destroyed in exchange for returning Uchiha Sasuke to Konoha. I'm not sure why we'd do such a thing. He's a monster who slaughtered his entire clan. That is not entirely correct, Tsunade no Ba-chan. He is a hero as great as my father and my devoted subordinate. What? What I'm about to tell you must never reach the ears of those who don't already know, and certain parts I'll leave up to you to do with as you see fit. I'm listening, she said, her interest growing as she had never seen Naruto so serious in his life. No, you must swear on everything you love, including your deceased lover, brother, and the name of your clan. Tsunade was taken aback by this, that Naruto would bring up something that he knew was painful to her. Alright, I swear. Good, Naruto said as he sat down on the grass. You may want to get comfortable for this, and please refrain from asking questions until the very end. They were in a large open field because it was by far the easiest way to hold a private meeting because eavesdropping would be nearly impossible due to the lack of natural or artificial cover. Tsunade sat across from him, following his lead. This village was founded due to the formation of a peace treaty between the two most powerful clans, the Uchiha and the Senju, but this treaty began to erode from the time the Shoden beat Uchiha Madara at the Valley of the End. The Naidem wanted to prevent this form ever happening again, which is why he allowed them privilege to police the Shinobi, but the creation of the Anbu seemed to undermine that, and the deterioration. Naruto paused to allow her to process everything, then continued. When the Kyuubi attacked, the blame fell squarely on the head of the Uchiha clan because it was no secret to this village that the Sharingan has the power to control the Biju. As a result, the Uchiha clan was segregated to the far end of the village. The Uchiha clan did not like this oppression, and during the second reign of Sandaime Hokage, they plotted their revenge, a coup d'etat, and used Itachi, the genius of. Tsunade was taken aback by what she was hearing. She could almost make out what happened next, but she remained silent while Naruto continued. Even Kakashi and the Anbu were taken aback by what they were hearing. As you might expect, Sandaime was eager to speak with them, but he was too late. His advisors and Danzo had a solution of their own, a very quick and decisive plan, a plan that forced Uchiha Itachi to throw away his heart, soul, family, and everything he held dear for the sake of his village. He was ordered by those three to eliminate the Uchiha clan, every last man, woman, and child. What you've said is very serious, Naruto. What proof do you have? I met Itachi a while back and we talked. Exactly like that? Inquired Kakashi. Well, no, he and his partner wanted to capture me and extract the Kyuubi, but unlike the Byakugan, the Sharingan is not as difficult to fight as everyone makes it seem. Kakashi looked at him as if encouraging him. Itachi specializes in Genjutsu, and his Sharingan gives him an edge with both Taijutsu and Ninjutsu, but Genjutsu is his trademark. I took out his partner first and... Are you sure it wasn't a Genjutsu he used? Quite, not even the Mangeku's Genjutsu can hold me for long, but when I looked into his true eyes for the first time, I saw every ounce of despair he went through. It confused me because what I heard of him did not match what I was seeing. Also, since his partner was out, he no longer wished to fight and was the one who actually suggested we talk. I still believe he made up the whole thing to save his neck, Tsunade said. I, too, was skeptical, so I set out to find answers for myself, and with the exception of Itachi, the only people who were still alive and knew the truth were Danzo and the counselors, Tsunade said, a dawning realization on her features. A few months ago, Sakura told me about a kunai mysteriously embedding itself over her bed with a node attached, leading to a panicked Kaharu. Wasn't it you? Yes, Please forgive me for my actions, but I couldn't simply ask for permission given my dishonorable departure and the fact that I was supposed to be dead, he said with a wide grin, adding, it was also really fun scaring the shit out of Sakura. That depends on what you discovered, she said, placing her cheek in her palm and ignoring the Sakura part. I discovered that it was their fault, and Itachi's story was correct. This is very concerning, Naruto, she said. Are you certain you can rely on him? I am not as naive as I once was, Tsunade no Ba-chan, but yes, I do. Based on Kaharu's testimony, he is exactly the kind of person I want serving me as one of my Jiryu. A ninja with such unshakable resolve and loyalty is not just born, and especially born of a clan that knows only loyalty to that clan blood and battle. He is not like the other Uchiha. Okay, I'll see what I can do, but it won't be easy because he's still dangerous and only a few people are aware of this, and you still have to deliver Sasuke. Then she had an epiphany. Sasuke defected from the village in search of vengeance. If he meets Itachi, I don't think he'll survive the fight, no matter how strong he is. You're correct, he won't survive the fight. Itachi is a shinobi that even Orochimaru fears. How do you intend to keep this promise, and what about Orochimaru, who will need to change bodies in about 2 months? Simple, Sasuke will not allow Orochimaru to take his body. He is wise enough to realize that he will not have the opportunity to kill Itachi as a meat suit for Orochimaru, and he is also far too proud to allow that to happen in the first place. But will Sasuke be able to defeat Orochimaru? Not a chance if Orochimaru is well. However, from the intelligence I have gathered and from my fight with him, I have learned that the reason he needs to change bodies every 3 years is because the body begins to reject him and he becomes extremely weak and completely dependent on Kabuto. I see, Kakashi interrupted again. In that state, Sasuke can kill Orochimaru and flee to fulfill his ambition. Yes, and Itachi as he is now appears to be driven solely by the thought of dying at the hands of Sasuke. No matter what I said, I could see it in his eyes, and he will not change his mind. I understand your strategy, but how will you get Itachi if Sasuke kills him? That has already been taken care of. Just be ready to remove him from the bingo book when Sasuke and Itachi fight, because Uchiha Itachi will no longer exist. Very well, but is there anything else? Surely you will not go through all of this for one man? Perhaps, but there's more in this case. So, what exactly is it? The head of my hunter division requests free passage for his ninja into Hai no Kuni for training missions, as well as to avoid inter-village politics impeding enemy nin's pursuit. That goes without saying, but why bother asking something so insignificant? Because he has a precarious situation with every country because he is a wanted man everywhere except in Whirlpool. We deliberately left out his name because that old warhawk will insist we extradite him. I have no doubt that my little rat will inform him, but since I didn't say it in the open then he cannot make any demands, but if you were to have his record cleaned with the daimyo of Hai no Kuni and removed. Tsunade smiled as he said, you drive a hard bargain, Naruto. I learned it from the best, Ba-chan, Naruto replied with a smile. You certainly did, she said as she rose from the grass to a standing position. Please allow me until tomorrow to make my final decision. Very well, he said as he shook her hand and began to walk away, but he paused as he took a step. I almost forgot to mention something very important that will ensure not only this treaty, but possibly a treaty with all 5 great nations, Ba-chan says. And what is it? Uchiha Madara is still alive and was the one who assisted Itachi in killing his clan, Naruto stated solemnly as a fearful expression crossed Kakashi's face. That is why I want that document destroyed. It is hidden in a secret Uchiha hideout, which I will reveal to you later. It details their long history and the secrets of their eyes. That thing is nothing more than a manual of the Uchiha's curse, and it will forever dog them unless it is destroyed and they forge a new path. He was gone with that. She sighed deeply and turned to Kakashi when he was gone. What are your thoughts, Kakashi? Naruto has truly grown from that child he once was, Hokage-sama, he said, his chest tightening with pride. It appears that he planned all of this from the start. This alliance, Danzo, his traitor, and the entire Sasuke and Orochimaru situation appear to be under his control to the point where he appears to have us all on strings. No, he told us a lot today, and he's inviting us to make our own puppets. If this works, there will be a lot fewer people to be concerned about. She then walked back to the village. Oh, and Kakashi and Tenzo, I don't think I need to tell you that you are not to tell anyone about this, not even each other. Good day, Hokage-sama. Even though midnight had passed, the Iwa ninja was still on high alert in the whirlpool. The anxiety level was high because every time scouts were sent out, they never returned, and those who did return alive returned without a single scratch and reported that the area was clear. What they didn't realize was that only half of the assassination unit remained in the area, along with the Shadow Clone, Mira, Riku, Kanta, and Tanoko. The entire hunter department rested, while the intelligence unit set traps throughout the area. The Iwa ninja couldn't leave their current location because they had no idea what was out there, and they couldn't move in a large group because they were clearly not in their territory. Are you certain there's nothing else out there? Hello, as far as I can tell, there is nothing. How in the world do you explain that? He slashed the Chunin and pointed to the rows of bodies that seemed to grow and grow. As he spoke, a single small object flew into the sky. Many mistook it for a kunai and dismissed it as nothing more than a scare tactic. This quickly turned to fear when the single kunai multiplied into a black cloud against the night sky, blocking out the moon's rays and raining death on the ninja. The majority of the ninja survived the assault, but the less skilled did not and were killed, leaving only about 100 ninja. Hours later, they were assaulted once more by the unknown, but this time by random arrows with exploding notes attached. This did little to kill them, but it did serve the purpose of driving them further into mental anguish while also causing physical exhaustion from the prolonged adrenaline overdose. Good job, Kanta, said the Shadow Clone. I want you to send messages to the others telling them to retreat to the village and rest while the hunter and intelligence unit launch their assault on the remaining assassination unit. Of course, Naruto-sama. Kanta simply tied several notes to his arrows and fired them in various directions, which was more secure than using a radio, especially if the enemy was also using radios. When 6 o'clock a.m. arrived, the assault ceased, as did the adrenaline in the Iwa ninja's systems. They were both physically and mentally exhausted, and some began to wonder if they had been poisoned, but found no signs of toxin-related signs. The rising sun signaled a new day, but not a single Iwa ninja cared about revenge or destroying them. Their minds were broken, their bodies seemed unresponsive, and that's exactly what they'll do. A lone man walked bravely towards their broken and destroyed encampment, with nothing but what appeared to be thread crisscrossed through his fingers. This audacious move crushed whatever fighting spirit was left in some, but it rekindled hope in others, hope enough to charge the foolish man and claim his head as a souvenir. False optimism. That is what it turned out to be, as they fell to the ground in far more pieces than they came in, with no one seeing how he did it, if there was a sword or cutting instrument, and all hell broke loose, first with arrows, kunai, and shuriken streaking out from under cover and ninja from all around them charging at them, preparing jutsu, drawing weapons, and throwing weapons as they came slaughtering the 100 remaining like cattle. The storm was saved, the enemy made it to their doorsteps, and many from far away will hear of this and stand in awe and astonishment, and they will no longer take the storm for a lowly pathetic village to be trampled over. The Shadow Clone looked at the fire with an unreadable expression. Lives were precious things, and to have ordered the extinguishment of so many was truly a sad thing, but he will feel no remorse for them, He will not say that it was their leader's fault because he had given them the choice and they all disregarded it and this is the result. He will not feel remorse for them. His remorse is better used mourning the deaths. Riku, he asked, as one of the ninja straightened behind him, have all the heads been sealed in the giant scroll? Yes, it is finished, and we are awaiting your orders, he said, pointing to the scroll in the possession of another man. Give it to Mira, and I will transport her to Iwa, he said as Mira took the scroll and slung it over her shoulders. I want the intelligence department patrolling the borders until Hinata and I return, and save the bodies of 3 of their finest Junins and return them to our village for examination. Are you going to have them examined? If one knew how to properly explore and examine a ninja's body, it was a treasure trove of knowledge. Yes, Naruto replied, this would be in retaliation for any other village that decides to disturb our peace. Alright, I'll take their bodies to the medical department and relay your orders. He walked away to carry out his orders. Kai, you did well today, but the battle isn't over yet. I want your department to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice if our enemies believe we're weak after our victory. We are always willing, ready, and able to serve. That's encouraging. I'm almost out of chakra, Mira, and this will be my last task before dispelling, so you'll be alone. I see, Kanshisha-sama. Don't worry, the Tsuchikage and I have an agreement, so you won't be in any danger unless he decides to betray me, he said, smiling, just thought you should know. Thank you, Naruto-sama. That's a huge relief. With that, he made a few hand gestures and faded into the earth, Mira by his side. Tsuchikage felt dreadful moments later in Iwa, as he was meeting with his advisors in his office. Does something bother you, Tsuchikage-sama? I'm not sure. I just have a feeling. Before he could finish his sentence, a section of the floor began to sway, revealing a man in his 20s and a woman. I'm glad to see you here, Tsuchikage Dono, the adolescent said, but I'm afraid I'll leave this to my subordinate. What brings you back? But it was futile because the man vanished in a puff of smoke, revealing himself to be a shadow clone. Please accept this as proof of our resolve and evidence of our conviction, she said, moving to remove the scroll. Allow me to extend my sympathies to the fallen and apologize for Kanshisha inability Samas to be here as he is currently unavailable. What does this mean? One of the counselors enraged by this blatant disrespect, who the hell are you people? You sent 300 ninja to our village to destroy us, and you don't even know what our symbol is. Oh, I see, the man smiled, have you come to grovel and beg for our forgiveness? Tsuchikage-sama, if you do it correctly, I might vote in your favor. He and the other counselors laughed at his own joke, but they soon realized that their cage was not laughing with them. Silence, everyone, he yelled, what's in that scroll? Take a look for yourself. Mira took a step back as the Tsuchikage signaled one of his Anbu to retrieve the scroll and open it. He opened the scroll to discover that it was for storage, and he checked it thoroughly to ensure that there were no traps. Shall I proceed, my lord, to unseal it? He inquired. Go ahead, he said, his gaze fixed on the black-haired vixen. Years of training and discipline kept the Tsuchikage from gasping in shock when the Anbu opened one of the seals and a decapitated head popped out with an Iwa Hitai Ite tied around its forehead. The counselors were furious, and the Tsuchikage felt his age for the first time in a long time. My mission is now complete. I'll be on my way, Mira said as she approached the door. You bastard, how dare you show such arrogance? Yelled a counselor, who the hell do you people think you are? She came to a halt at the door and turned slowly, and the words that followed will live on in the minds of those who were present. The storm is who we are. Capture her right away, the other counselor ordered. I don't care who you think you are. The Anbu was about to move when the Tsuchikage stopped him. Enough. No one is to touch her or accompany her to the exit, he yelled. Good day, Tsuchikage-sama. With that, the Anbu and Mira exited the Tsuchikage tower through the front door and then the main exit. What is the significance of this? Asked the counselor, and we had a fantastic opportunity to capture one of their ninja. She is obviously very trusted and high-ranking based on her assigned task. You fools, the short old man growled, haven't you realized yet? On my desk is a large scroll with enough space in it to seal away more than one head. They approached the scroll with trepidation and unraveled it only to see that the entire length of the scroll was filled, 250 heads, and they can only hope that the last 50 survived. What did we do? How could this have happened? Asked the counselor solemnly. Perhaps we were too arrogant. The storm is a peaceful village filled with sleeping dragons, tigers, birds of prey, and many more predators and deceptive creatures that may appear to be prey until it is too late. They have great power and knowledge but are greatly underestimated by fools who seek their power and wish to dominate them, but there are many sayings that warn of the dangers of sleeping animals, and in the simplest words they all mean the same thing. It's amazing how a war can be waged in one part of the world where people die in miserable conditions for a cause other than their own, while the cause of those same battles may not even be on the same grounds. This was going on while the Iwa ninja was being slaughtered on the battlefield. While they waged a war that seemed too easy to take seriously at first, only to be brutally cut down later, their council had already planned what they would do with the lands and how they would appeal to the daimyo of the lands. They did not, however, plan for one thing. Their spies were dead, so their intelligence was useless, and they were too arrogant to take the road that led to life. This and much more was relayed to Naruto as his shadow clone dissipated, but he did not appear to be a man who had just won a convincing battle against one of the continent's 5 most powerful nations. The others in the room looked at his face, some fearing the worst and hoping for something in the middle that they could easily exploit. Judging by your startled expression, I'm assuming your clone has vanished, leaving you with all of its information? Kaharu inquired. Naruto didn't look at her, simply thinking before speaking. Kanshisha-sama? Homura inquired. Naruto finally looked up, a half-hearted smile on his face. It's over, he stated emphatically. Iwa's entire force has been purged, and I doubt they'll send reinforcements or seek vengeance. Earlier that day, as the Konoha and Arashi representatives were finally reaching an agreement on the alliance, a messenger arrived with an urgent message for Tsunade, which she then relayed to the rest of the group. Flashback. The Chunin dashed into the courtyard to deliver his message, but Shizune quickly silenced him and took him aside. This is a very important and high-level meeting, she explained. I will inform Hokage-sama of your news. Yes, my apologies, he said before continuing to deliver his message. Our scouts report that Iwa has launched a massive offensive against the new Uzumaki no Kuni. Shizune's pupils dilated. What? She exclaimed quietly, that could only mean. They are on their way to the hidden village there, Arashi. I must immediately notify Tsunade-sama. Shizune returned to deliver the important news, so the ninja left. When she returned to the courtyard, everyone seemed to be finished, and everyone's faces were plastered with smiles. Well, as much as the council and Danzo could smile. Tsunade-sama, Shizune said, there's urgent news that you need to hear right away. What is it? She inquired, drawing the attention of the courtyard's occupants. Iwa has gone on the offensive against Arashi. Of course, Tsunade already knew about this from the previous night with Hinata, but if she revealed it, the council would begin to question why they were not informed of something so important, and if it came out that she had been speaking to Naruto and Hinata in secret, the plan to get rid of Root and Akahoshi would have been seriously jeopardized, if not foiled. So, in order to avoid this, she played along and pretended to be unaware. Are you sure about this? Shizune gave a nod. All eyes were now on Naruto. If you left yourself so callously open and allowed Iwa to capture your village, we may have to reconsider our alliance with you. Koharu stated the obvious. For a while, Naruto seemed to ignore everyone's gaze. Do you have nothing to say? Danzo inquired, detecting blood in the water. In fact, I do, Naruto said, his voice solemn yet solemn. I'm waiting for my cage bunshin to come out. What do you mean? Hiashi inquired for the first time. I was aware of Iwa almost from the time that old man devised this plan, and I planned accordingly. I'm really curious how you did that. Homura inquired, retaking his seat as everyone else did. After the incident at the waterfall, I hoped that Iwa wouldn't hold a grudge against a small village like ours for easily defeating 50 of their numbers, which I believe you are all aware of. Yes, we do, Danzo confirmed. So, please proceed. But I couldn't be sure, so I had one of my best and most loyal ninja infiltrate the village, and she was able to gain information when the Tsuchikage decided to attack my village, using her persuasive skills. Naruto finished, but he didn't mention that Iwa only attacked because they were alerted to his absence and how deep the information obtained by one Kitsumara Mira lead. No, he'll talk to Tsunade about it later, but for now, he needed to feed certain people a certain amount of the truth so they'd think he had no idea. Danzo, on the other hand, knew better. He knew a man as old and experienced as the Tsuchikage would not attack if the opportunity was not just right, so he had already formulated that this meeting had been leaked out from Arashi, and he had a good idea which power-hungry maniac would do that. It appears that I will have to deal with him much sooner than I had planned, Danzo thought. Before the battle, I created a shadow clone to command my ninja, and as you know, the shadow clone is an almost exact duplicate of the original, and with my restrictions lifted, returning to the storm in one night was no difficult task. Naruto stated. Flashback conclusion. What exactly do you mean by purged? Tsunade inquired. They've all been killed, he stated flatly. They all fell silent, none of them willing to believe Naruto would issue such an order. They didn't seem to realize how mature he had become, particularly as a leader. Hiashi, on the other hand, was the one who broke the silence. Shouldn't you be happy if what you say is true? Hiashi inquired. Despite being a young and small village, you pulled off a devastating, upset victory over one of the Great Five. I am proud of my ninja's performance, he said sternly, but what is there to be happy about having 300 ninja killed? So you feel bad about this? Danzo spoke for him. Not exactly, he replied, and Danzo listened intently as Naruto continued, because of their pride, they all died as worthless fools. I may not be happy, but I will not express regret, only pity. Spoken like a true leader, Danzo remarked, makes me ashamed for what this village has done to you in the past. This would have given even Tsunade a heart attack, which she thought she nearly did. Danzo actually paid Naruto a compliment that wasn't laced with sarcasm or falsehoods. Who knows what he would have done if he had known the other things Naruto did to keep the peace. Of course, the best victory is to avoid conflict entirely or to achieve victory with no loss of life on either side. There was also that. Danzo stated flatly, prompting Naruto's fox-like grin and Hinata's giggle. Well, let's all meet this evening at the ceremony at the Hokage Tower to officially sign the agreement, Tsunade said, and everyone filed out of the courtyard, except Naruto, Hinata, Akahoshi, and the Jiryu no Arashi. A boy with dark rings around his eyes and blood-red hair floated above the ground in a dark cavern, chakra pouring out of his mouth and eyes. Around him were projected images of 6 men and 1 woman, as well as 2 others who were not projections. Except for one thing, they all looked different. They were all dressed in black cloaks with red clouds printed on them. This was the organization, Akatsuki, and they were currently extracting the Biju from someone they didn't expect to get so easily given his connections with powerful people and the fact that they had previously attempted to capture him. "Oi, Deidara," one of the men who was present said, "you got this kid's $1 handed to you. What kind of pathetic person are you? What did you say?" Deidara snapped as he concentrated on sealing the chakra. "You heard me," the man said. "But then again, I never expected much from someone who hasn't accepted Jashin." "Enough," Hidan, a taller, more relaxed man, spoke up. "I have a better right to be angry than you do." "Oh, did you miss out on some money-making opportunity?" "Yes, that monk had quite a bounty on his head, and we had to go to Wind Country instead of Fire Country to compensate for their shortcomings." "What are you good for?" "Enough." One of the projections was demanded. Despite the banter between Deidara, Kakazu, and Hidan, they were largely ignored by the rest of the group. However, the man who spoke last drew everyone's attention. Whether it was the intensity of his presence, the consecutive rings in his eyes, or a combination of the two, his eyes seemed to pierce the darkness that they were in. But whatever it was, his words were law, and anyone who disobeyed him was a fool. Due to some unforeseen information, a golden opportunity to obtain the Ichibi Jinchuriki was presented to us, and you two were the closest at the time. Deidara scoffed as Hidan continued, "Yay, yay, yay." But it was really simple, with little resistance. "I wished I could make a few sacrifices to Jashin-sama. Do not consider it your skill," Deidara explained. "It couldn't be because of your ability." Kakuzu reappeared, leaving Deidara with a snarl, Itachi with a small smile, and Kisame with a large grin. "What the fuck are you two grinning about?" demanded Deidara. "Calm down, Senpai," Tobi said, his voice exceedingly irritating. "You could burst a vessel in your brain." Kisame, on the other hand, chose to answer his question. He was captured because their allies were too busy and too embarrassed to ask for assistance so soon after the first time. Kisame chuckled and said, "Who would have guessed that a battle between that new village and Iwa, as well as that new village forming an alliance with Konoha, would expose Sand to such danger?" The timing was flawless. "It's a shame, though," Itachi said, which was unusual for him. "That village won't last long if vital information like alliances is leaked to so many people." "That is unimportant to us," the leader stated. "Pay attention to your task. It won't be long before this location is discovered, and I don't want to lose the host this time." "Understood," the four said as they returned to silence, each concentrating on the task at hand. "How are you doing on the remaining Jinchuriki?" "We've found the Nibi and will capture her soon," said Kakuzu. "We've also located the Sanbi, and it won't be long before it's captured." "Because we're the best, right, Deidara-senpai?" replied Tobi, as a tick mark appeared on Deidara's head. "How about your progress, Itachi?" asked the boss. "The Gobi has been located, but due to his power, capturing him will be extremely difficult." "That is understandable, but Kisame's abilities should suffice." "Agreed." "How about the Kyuubi?" "We've narrowed down his location to the new Whirlpool country, and we suspect he's a member of the new hidden village that's formed there," Itachi explained. "However, due to his enormous growth, caution must be exercised." "Immense growth?" the leader inquired, prompting Kisame to smile and laugh happily. "We were caught off guard when we encountered him, but he quickly fled." Itachi remained silent when Kisame responded. Kisame was not going to tell them he had been knocked unconscious and left there. "Very well, you don't have to rush with him," the leader said. He'll have to be sealed last anyhow. Meanwhile, in an unknown location, a young man with dark hair and a brooding face sat on the back of a downed opponent, surrounded by 100 others, some dead, some alive, and some barely. He was tired as he rested his arms on his knee, then looked up as his teacher regarded him with anticipation and intrigue on his pale snake-like features. "Why did you leave so many alive, Sasuke-kun?" he snarled. "There is only one man I really want to kill." Sasuke rose from the body he had been using as a stool and slid his blade into its sheath before slowly walking away. His disdain for his teacher was a barely concealed secret. Another man with bluish-white hair tied in a short ponytail and wire-rimmed glasses over a pair of mismatched eyes followed him. The man came to a halt next to Sasuke. "You should respect Orochimaru-sama more." This was yet another man who disgusted Sasuke, but instead of coldly ignoring him as he always did, Sasuke tilted his head to the side and smirked into Kabuto's eyes. "For a second there, Kabuto, I almost mistook you for my old sensei," Sasuke joked. "Remind me to thank the Dobi when I see him next." As the Uchiha survivor walked away, Kabuto snarled at Sasuke's back. He promised to get his revenge on that blonde-haired demon brat the next time they met, but until then, he was content with the fact that Naruto and Sasuke would eventually meet again, and Sasuke would be rudely awakened when he discovered how wrong his estimation of the Jinchuriki was. With that in mind, he walked alongside his master, a contented grin on his face. "What is it that makes you so happy, Kabuto?" Orochimaru inquired. "There's nothing to be concerned about, Orochimaru-sama. Only future events." Indeed, Orochimaru rasped as he watched Sasuke's retreating form, licking his lips with a disgustingly long tongue. "The future appears to be bright. This will not go down well with Uzumaki-sama," the Chunin liaison between Arashi and Sand said. "About what?" asked one of the ninja assigned to keep him from fleeing. "Is it our failure to inform him of the situation, or your inability to inform him?" "Both," the Storm Chunin said, warily eyeing them. "Probably also at Akatsuki. As a result, I must inform my superiors." Just then, an elderly man entered the room. He was dressed in dusty gray robes and had his head bandaged. He also had long brows that seemed to cover his seemingly empty eyes. "I am truly sorry for this. As our allies, you should assist, and I appreciate your willingness to do so, but word has it that the storm is at odds with Iwa and your village, while your Kanshisha is in Konoha forming an alliance. Even if we did request assistance, I doubt anyone would be sent from either of our allies," he said, somewhat disappointed. "Even if they were able to assist, I am confident that they would be ineffective and would arrive too late to make a difference." "How do you know if you haven't even asked for assistance?" "You even kept me hostage so I wouldn't get news to my people," he said. "It's quite simple. We have pride." The old man walked out of the room, but before the door closed, the Arashi Chunin said one more thing. "Then I wish you the best," he said, "because if something happens to Kazekage-sama, there's no telling what Kanshisha-sama will do when she finds out." This piqued the elder's interest, and he abruptly came to a halt. "What do you mean?" the man inquired cautiously. "Are you implying any kind of threat?" "No, please forgive me if you misinterpreted what I said. I meant no disrespect and made no threat." "So, what exactly did you mean?" Uzumaki-sama is the type of person who protects those he considers close to him with zeal, and he sees Gaara as a kindred spirit. He once told me that if circumstances had been different 3 years ago, he could have become what Gaara was. "I see," the old man said, understanding the potential situation. "The Sand and Storms Alliance is one of mutual friendship, a sort of pact to always protect one another." The Arashi Chunin nodded positively. Then there's nothing to worry about. Gara-sama will undoubtedly return alive. That's certainly good news, he said before letting out a dark chuckle. At least for those who aren't to blame for this disaster. So you, too, believe that this is far too coincidental? I am quite surprised that a Chunin from a small village could be so insightful, the old man said with a smile. Do not expect me to be like the other Chunins in this village just because I am ranked Chunin. Be careful what you say, Arashi Shinobi, lest you prove those words. The same applies to you too, he stated coldly. Do not assume that having the same rank equates to having the same power and strength. I am a Chunin of the Storm and a proud member of the Fuma clan. The old man smiled as he exited the room, and the two Chunin followed him out to stand guard at the door. The younger generation is doing well, Nei-san, he thought, a single tear falling from his eye. Know that you leave us well and with no regrets. When Naruto went to the Storm to form the alliance, even though Chiyo-ba-sama was initially opposed to all alliances, her brief time with Naruto changed her mind, and when it came time to vote, everyone was surprised when she agreed with the decision, saying that it was far more worth it than with the weakling Leaf Village. Many had laughed, but those who knew her best saw that through Gaara and Naruto, she could leave this world knowing that her home would be safe for a long time. Achoo. Are you okay, Chiyo-ba-sama? Just some jerk talking about me, now hurry up, she said. We must find Kei's cage as soon as possible. Hello, they said as they continued their hunt for Cage. It would be a long journey, and hope was low. The village had already sent out sentries on border patrol, so there would be no help from their village or their allies anytime soon. But Chiyo was determined not to give up. She had witnessed how much and how far that blonde child and his comrades went simply because they were friends. Back in her day, a friend was someone who carried the same symbol as you, and allies were never to be trusted and were only used as a means to an end, but she had witnessed something different, something that had shown her that there was a better way to exist as a ninja without the hatred and enmity. Later that day in Konoha, Naruto and his group walked through the streets of Konoha with Kakashi as an escort, and people cheered for him. The older folks spoke of him as a mischievous but hard-working young lad, the women spoke of how well he had grown, the men boasted of how strong the Konoha people were despite the fact that he hadn't been a Konoha citizen for nearly 3 years, and the young girls smiled and winked at him while blushing at him. One would think Hinata would be jealous or threatened by the girls' obvious flirting, but she was above that. She knew Naruto loved her and that they would never be apart, but a quick glare would put those hussies in their place. Relax, Hinata-chan, he said, taking her hand in his own. You are the sole object of my affection. I know, she admitted, but did Tsunade-sama organize everything? Actually, rumors about you spread quickly, and I guess the entire village has finally recognized you for who you truly are. This was bittersweet. He had finally received the recognition he had always sought, but it had almost cost him his life. But, while he was grateful he didn't die and could bask in the glory, he didn't feel right. No, he said as he approached the Hokage's office, it's something else they see, or perhaps they seek redemption. The cheers continued, but 2 women darted out in front of him, and Shigure, Tsubaki, and Danjo braced themselves to defend their leaders at a moment's notice if this was a well-planned assassination attempt. The cheering stopped, and they were taken aback when, instead of attempting to kill him, the 2 women bent at the waist. We apologize, they said. We made an incorrect assessment of you. They quickly turned around to flee, but were stunned when a hand wrapped around their arms, immobilizing them. They both looked over their shoulders to see who was holding them, and they both paled when they met a pair of blue eyes. They were surprised by his speed. Do I know you 2 ladies? He asked, a smile on his face mixed with confusion and a hint of embarrassment. You look familiar, but I just can't seem to place the face. You see, I've been gone for a long time, and people have been saying stuff like that a lot, but for some reason you two seem to stand out. I fear you were mistaken, Uzumaki-sama. We are just ordinary Konoha residents who treated you unfairly and wrongly when you were a child. I see, Naruto said as he let go of their arms, which remained motionless. He scrunched up his brow and thought for a moment before breaking into a sad smile. Is everything okay? One of the two women inquired. I just realized who you were, he explained. Surely. They started, but were cut off when Naruto spoke up. That day on the swing, when I failed the genin exam for the third time, he said as the sad memory surfaced as he continued walking and motioned for the two women to join him. I remember you saying that someone like me had no right to become a ninja, he said to the woman on his right, loud enough for the other civilians on the street not to hear him, then turned to the woman on his left. But you have a good friend, and she stopped you from breaking a very dangerous law. They both hung their heads in shame as Naruto recanted the story. It seemed a lot sadder than they had expected, but they weren't him. Yes, that was it, and we have no excuse for our unfairness. To have judged and treated you in that manner is unforgivable. I've grown accustomed to hatred and hate-filled looks coming from all around me, but... This time a nervous grin crossed his face and he scratched the back of his head. All these cheers and well wishes are making me uncomfortable. This seemed to aggravate their feelings as they sunk deeper into themselves. Hinata, seeing the two women's anguish, decided to ask a question that had bothered her since she arrived. Excuse me, she said, looking at the two women, I'd like to ask you a question. Anything we can do, said the woman on the left. What has changed? Hinata inquired. Please excuse me? What has changed so drastically between the time Naruto-kun left and now that the people of Konoha suddenly regard him as a hero? That brought a tear to the eyes of the two women, as well as those close enough to hear the question. Nothing happened, one of the women lamented. The pain didn't go away and seemed to get worse. Then I realized I had spent my life hating a child for something that wasn't his fault. Many people couldn't handle the guilt, and some even committed suicide, said a bystander. Then you returned, and it felt like we had a second chance to make amends, said another random person. If there is anything you need, just let me know, and I will do my best. I'm with you. Anything you require. Come on in. As he approached the Hokage Tower, he was bombarded with all of this and more. The two women came to a halt outside the building, and the last thing they saw of Naruto was him saying, "All is forgiven." He had no ill will toward the village. Iruka had saved him from that path, and he had instead chosen the path that allowed him to rise above adversity rather than be affected by it. They never met him and never tried, and for 3 years they suffered the consequences of misplaced rage. He didn't hate them, and he could forgive them easily, making his heart lighter than it had ever been. But the part that made him the happiest was that he had achieved one of his ultimate goals. Even though he led a different village, everyone loved and respected him, as if they had already accepted him as Hokage. Naruto sat beside Tsunade, signing their names to the 2 sheets of paper that represented their alliance agreement. All those present, including select Junin and clan heads, applauded the signing and proceeded to shake Naruto and the storm contingent's hands. When Naruto went up to shake hands with Danzo, he first looked at the outstretched hand before examining the old man's posture. He might have fallen if he had taken his hand off the cane. I'm sorry, Naruto said, removing his hand, I sometimes get carried away. No problem, that's typical of you. Naruto burst out laughing. That's correct. When are you going to tell us about that secret substance that the Taki leaders used to boost their strength in battle? Do you mean the liquid that they collect and use to give a person of Chunin strength the power of a cage? Danzo simply stood there. Naruto looked around to make sure no one was watching him, then leaned in close to Danzo's ear. I'd never heard of it before. Danzo frowned and walked out of the room without looking back. I'll show you why playing games with me is a bad idea, boy. What has Councilman Danzo so upset? Hiashi inquired of Naruto. Better than me, he said. I suppose he can't take a joke. Think of me as a fool all you want, Danzo. You are not the only cunning fox in the world, Naruto reflected as he spoke with Hiashi. I could have told you, he admitted. Can I help you, Hiashi? I remembered we made a deal that if I lost, I would give you and my daughter my blessing to marry. Are you implying? Hiashi nodded, and Naruto whooped and dashed across the room, startling everyone in the room, including Hinata, as he picked her up at the waist and spun her around. What happened to you, Naruto-kun? We can marry without fear of repercussions, Hinata. What do you mean? I have kept my word, daughter, and as a gift to our new ally, neither you nor your children shall bear the caged bird seal. That had to be the most shocking thing any of the assembled ninja had ever heard. The only thing more surprising would be if Orochimaru was actually afraid of snakes. Thank you, Hiashi, or should I say Oto-san? Naruto smiled, while Hiashi frowned. That will not be required. As Tsunade approached the two, the entire room burst out laughing. Naruto, please allow me to be the first to congratulate you, and please accept this as a token of our gratitude. Tsunade then reached behind her neck and untied the pendant that had been wrapped around her neck and tied it around Naruto's. It always looked better on you, she explained. Thank you, Ba-chan, Naruto said happily, his eyes welling up with tears. Oh, I almost forgot, Danjo, the scroll, he added. Danjo produced a scroll tied with a yellow string from his hip pouch and handed it to Naruto. Naruto unfolded the scroll on the floor, revealing a storage seal. Everyone came to a halt to see what would come out of the seal. A beautiful sword appeared with a single sign, its scabbard black with patterns of golden leaves dancing all around it. The handle was straightforward, with yellow wrappings over a leaf symbol emblazoned beneath it. Finally, it featured a simple square metal guard with spirals incorporated. Please accept this katana as a symbol of the strength of our relationship. Tsunade accepted the sword with barely concealed awe. She unsheathed it and stared at the blade as her reflection did the same. It's so light, it feels like a wakizashi, she commented. I appreciate it. It is capable of channeling the nature of your chakra because it was made using chakra channeling metal in the hands of a man who truly knows metals better than anyone else, he boasted. What you have in your hand there is a perfect katana, and its sharpness, strength, and durability are greater than that of any other weapon despite its lightness. Tsunade described the blade as truly magnificent. I'm thinking of calling it Konoha no Yaiba. A fitting name, Kakashi commented. Tsunade moved her thumb slowly to the blade to test its sharpness, but a firm hand stopped her wrist from moving any further. That's a terrible idea, Ba-chan. Tsunade huffed as Naruto quickly plucked a single hair from Kakashi's hair. Ouch. Haha, I've always wanted to do that. I see your old pranking ways haven't gone away yet, Naruto, Kakashi observed. Not quite, but that was not the intention. Tsunade was about to object when Naruto placed his hair over the sword in his hand. Tsunade raised the sharpened blade in anticipation of what Naruto was about to do with that single strand of hair that seemed to be defying gravity. Naruto let go of the strand, allowing it to fall to the blade of the sword under its own weight. When it came into contact with it, it was cut in half at the point where it made contact with the blade. When I said that the man who forged this weapon is a master and the only one who truly understands metal, I wasn't exaggerating, Naruto said. smirking at the stunned expressions on everyone's faces. Kiri's 7 swords cannot compare to this, and there is only one weapon that compares in both sharpness and strength. I see, Tsunade said as she carefully slid the sword back into its sheath, taking care not to cut off her fingers. But the joys were short-lived, as a bird flew through the window, and Hinata stretched out her hand as the bird rested on it. This was noticed by everyone in the room. It's fine, my friend. You can express yourself freely. Very well, the bird said. Your liaison with the sand sends an urgent message, but he fears it may be too late because it took him so long to sneak around his watchers. Naruto's stomach sucked in on itself as he feared the worst. So, what do you have to report? Hinata inquired gently. Akatsuki struck the sand again and succeeded in capturing the cage almost 3 days ago, and the Suna ninja have not yet located him. That is all I have been told, so I'm leaving now. The summoned bird vanished in a puff of smoke with that. This can't be, Naruto exclaimed. Why would they attack now of all times? Then it clicked, and all the hours of strategic thinking that Master Kyoshi had drilled into him began to pay off, and he realized. Hokage-sama, Naruto said solemnly, may I speak with you privately, please? Sure, Tsunade said, taking note of his solemn expression, come this way. Tsunade spoke when they were behind closed doors and the room was secured by Anbu. Naruto, what are you thinking? Tsunade inquired quietly and circumspectly. I know how this happened, he explained cautiously. It happened because Iwa knew when to attack. If they knew about Konoha forming an alliance and storm fighting off Iwa, they would know that Suna would be in a vulnerable position for a quick surprise attack, Tsunade speculated. Treason to the village is punishable by death, Naruto explained, but an allied hidden village has suffered as well, and my friend may be dead as a result. Shall we then advance the plan? No, wait until they show their true colors, and then do whatever you want with Danzo, but Akahoshi will suffer a fate far worse than death. I almost want you to deal with Danzo as well. Almost, she said slyly, but we can't have them suspecting anything. Naruto was angry, very angry, but he would not let that control him or cause him to do irrational things just because he felt compelled to. No. Master Kyoshi had spent a great deal of time teaching him the benefits of emotions. They were not meant to be thrown away, as so many ninja believed, but they were also tools, like any other in a ninja's arsenal, and with the proper control, they can be quite deadly. Flashback. Naruto tried for the 10th time that day to separate the colored powder into its individual colors using his chakra, but no matter how much he tried, it always blasted out of his hands covering his face, so he clenched his fist and pelted it on the ground, then kicked at the ground when he threw it, scattering it to the wind. Do you think that was stupid? From behind him spoke the aged Nin Master. This isn't for me, Sensei. My chakra control is as good as it gets. Is that you speaking or the anger? What? Rather than using your anger as a tool, you let it use you and cause you to give up. I don't get it. Emotions are difficult for people to control, and many end up making stupid mistakes and blaming it on the emotion. As a result, ninja today chose to forego emotions on the whole in the mistaken belief that having emotions makes you weaker. I never believed that. I always believed that our emotions were what made us stronger, Naruto explained. I completely agree, but do you know why? Naruto nervously scratched the back of his head. It's how we use it, my student, the old man explained, adding, emotions can never be blamed for one's actions, what you do is a result of your own mind, so if you feel ZZZZ. Naruto poked him in the ribs to startle him awake. Angry, you should not just act. Instead, think first, and you will realize that there are hundreds of options from which to choose, and because of that anger and a calm mind, what you had planned before may even be better after. Can I do that for every emotion? Yes. How am I going to do that? When you experience overwhelming emotions, do nothing with your body and only think about it. Flashback conclusion. Of course, it took Naruto a few more weeks to realize what his master was saying, but he was glad he did because when he finally got his hands on that treacherous bastard, he would wish he had died in star training.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.